Startup Folsom.
All right, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Roseville Venture Lab series on AI. And the purpose of these workshops is to help business owners become accustomed and be able to use AI for their business. And so, and this is also sponsored by the City of Roseville. So if you know anybody from the City of Roseville, thank them for sponsoring this. My name is Rich Foreman, and I don't even know how to describe myself. I describe myself as a serial entrepreneur, but I'm also a community builder. And by the way, when you say serial entrepreneur, it's never really good because it means serial is bad, like serial murderer, serial arsonist. Just basically means I'm unemployable. So anyway, today we're gonna. Instead of trying to teach automation, I want to have a panel discussion on what AI automation is. And so I have Linda Gilbert from Hulu, Nicholas Hastings from Sweet Fleet, but he's also involved in so many things. He's also a board member of Startup SAC. Yeah. And then Aaron Watkins, he and I are almost in the same. We started our entrepreneurial careers together. 2009. Yeah, it was like he had an app agency, an agency that helped advertise apps. And then I had an agency, I had a company that made apps. I think he went the better route. So with that, I'm going to start with, and I'm going to start this way. So let's start with Linda. Do you want to fully introduce yourself and talk about what is it you do?
Okay, absolutely. So Linda Gilbert, VP of Product and Engineering at Hulu Automation, headquartered in lovely Auburn, California. Yes, beautiful. We not only do we have amazing employees, but we've got bears and other wildlife that love to visit us during the day, so that's always fun. But our main focus is a human-in-the-loop work orchestration, and we AI powered across our platform. And so I lead our AI ML teams, our engineering teams, product management, cybersecurity, IT, basically anything technical, across the board is what flows into my group there. And so we're really focused on work orchestration and the future of work using AI-powered technology. So.
Nicholas?
Perfect. Where do we start? So Nicholas Hastings, co-founder of many things in the region. Mostly things that exist at the intersection. These glasses will not stay on my face. Things that mostly working on projects that really are at the intersection of community building and technology. So a few of the things that I built out would be Square Root Academy. That'd be my oldest child, if you will. So with Square Root Academy, we make sure that kids and youth from under-resourced communities have access to technology and basically aren't left on the wrong side of the digital divide. In addition to that, co-founder of Sweet Fleet Virtual Assistants, which is my virtual assistant agency. We focus on small businesses, nonprofits, et cetera. So we build out custom automations for them, also help them with marketing and really kind of like operate their back office and all that other fun stuff. And I just also happen to be the co-founder of SAC Tech Week as well. So pleasure to be here with you all. Looking forward to the conversation.
He doesn't sleep much.
I was going to say, I think by virtue of being in like the AI and automation space, we all do a bunch of things because we're like, well, I automated that, so now I got to go do something else.
Because we can.
Exactly. I remember your kids group because I used to do, one of my early startups was a STEM education company called STEMtron. So Aaron Watkins, during the day I'm Director of Automation and AI for NetBrain, which is a network automations company. We have clients from Fortune 500, governments, all sorts of crazy big stuff. During the evenings and afternoons though, I run Canopy Automated, which is a consultancy and agency for small businesses who want to get into automation and AI work. So I set up automated systems, CRMs. I basically work with businesses to say, hey, what takes up all of your time all day that you don't want to do? Let's figure out how to automate it, get it off your plate, and hopefully increase some of your response rates and things for customers, or increase the amount of reviews that you're getting, or make sure that someone's following up with billing for the annoying people who aren't paying the bills. So all of those little things where it's like, if you think about most people who start a business have something they're really good at that they want to do, and that's not the nitty-gritty little things of managing the business, it's the actual thing their business does. And so I help sort of get all of those other things off this thing.
You're a natural salesman too. All right, so this is kind of an open question. You can just blurt out your answer, or whoever wants to answer. It's
B.
Wrong. So in plain English, how would you describe AI automation? Anybody?
So it's kind of two things, right? So like I was doing automation way before AI. AI just made it way easier, right? So automation is often a lot of just like workflow development, right? We're saying this happens, a little bit of logic, then we do this. We're gonna do this or this? Nope, we're gonna do this. Okay, great, now we're here. We're gonna do this or this? Okay, now we do that. Oftentimes it's connecting systems together, right? So it's like, okay, I've got QuickBooks, and I've got a website, and I've got email, and I've got all of these things. How do these things start to talk to each other in a way that I can kind of hands off? With AI, that takes it one step further, which is not only can I have something respond via email to this customer, I can have that email be written right away, right? And that email can be different every single time based on the signals that I'm getting from the customer, from content enrichment, from other things, so that the response no longer feels automated, right? One of the big things that I always focus on in automation is like, your automation shouldn't feel like automation, because people don't want to talk to automation. People don't want to talk to AI. They want to talk to you. So you got to kind of have to focus on how do you use the tools, but sometimes sort of make it feel like you're not using the tools.
Yeah, so Linda, I'm going to direct this question. So what types of projects are you working right now? If you could describe it generally, what a typical AI project would look like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So our industry is primarily banking and credit unions, as well as retail wholesale. And so really when we start to think about how we can change the direction for these banks, we've got a lot of loan origination type projects, anything that's document heavy, repeatable processes, back office operations, anything also related to engagement. And like we mentioned, AI, right? How do I incorporate these AI-based projects into the flow? AI is going to be great for including reasoning in the processes, right? So you're going to have, at Hulu, we have our human workers that are engaged in processes. We've got robotic workers engaged for their very prescriptive jobs, your traditional automation, and then agentic. Right? So anything that needs reasoning, some intelligence behind it, some learning as you adapt and grow based on the flow, right? We want it to have the information that it has the first time to know that, say, a check that comes through is not fraudulent. And every time another check comes through, it learns more about things like shadowing. Right? So it can bring a human in the loop when it says, oh, you know what? I'm recognizing that there's a pattern here, and based on this reasoning, I can see that there's cause for concern, so let me engage a human in this part of the decision process, otherwise everything else looks normal. So it's just really important with those processes to identify not only what am I doing today, but how can I continually do it better, learn from it, adapt it, and drive it forward while still taking advantage of all of the expertise that humans have in the flow.
So this is just Hulu actually started before large language models became a thing. So how has that changed with the introduction? How has Hulu changed with the introduction of large language models?
Yeah, and so Hulu is for human in the loop, right? So our very first software was really meant for traditional robotic process automation. So the things that had very constrained rules, right? If I'm at a stoplight, I stop when it's red and I go when it's green. And so with Hulu, really, as we look at the industry and we look at the need and what evolved and what AI could do and how it could start to spawn in the process, you look at how can I have that natural language? What's the percentage of the work that people are doing? What's the adoption with certain systems? And certainly, as we look at older platforms or legacy platforms that in the banking or credit union industry, people struggle to work with, right? AI is a really good opportunity to shape that work and work with it differently than a lot of other traditional robotic process automation flows would have.
Okay, thank you. And Nick, what are some of the projects AI automation projects you're currently working on now?
It's a few different ones because honestly it kind of depends on the client. I was talking to Aaron about that a little bit earlier. That's actually the fun part about it, right? You know, there's not one exactly kind of like silver bullet to actually solve all the problems for these small businesses and nonprofits. So it's different, right? So I think one that I like is actually just kind of, you know, when you're starting a business and all that, you know, I think the hardest part is figuring out, you know, what to do, how to businessify this thing, you know, how to figure out what am I supposed to be doing on the day-to-day and all that other kind of fun stuff. So one of the first automations that we tend to set, well, I'll take a step back. Before we actually automate, we have to actually define what it is that we're doing here first, right? I think we've talked about this last time a little bit, Rich. So basically making sure that you have an SOP and all that other kind of fun stuff. So, you know, your standard operating procedure, figuring out where are we starting, what's the goal we want to accomplish, and how do we fill in the gaps here. So first step is actually having that part defined, right? And then we go into the automations. So one that I tend to kind of have them do for one after we break down their business, the functions, you know, their pain points, et cetera, is we have a source of knowledge. Sometimes that's Notion, sometimes that's Airtable, whatever the case may be. Then we pair that with Claude, so Claude can go ahead and kind of scrape that, you know, for whatever SOPs, operation strategies that they might kind of like already have in place. And then we connect that to Slack, so we can actually have messages going out on a day-to-day basis of like, okay, this is what you need to do today. It gets distributed to the appropriate team member, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you can do it that way, or you can just do all that on Lindy. Lindy is one of those tools where you can kind of pretty much describe the automation and it'll just make it for you. I freaking love that thing. It can text these things to you, it can Slack it to you, whatever kind of form of communication you prefer. But really my main thing is like, let's get these folks organized first, because you know, it's kind of a chaotic mess, the life of the founder. You know how this goes. So first step is getting folks organized, and the second one is making them efficient.
What about you, Aaron? Any projects you could talk about?
Yeah, so it differs quite greatly from like my day job and my night job, right? So like my day job, large Fortune 500 companies, like we're building, for example, a content generation engine, right? And kind of like what Nick's saying is that like the LLM, the Claude, the ChatGPT, the whatever, it's only so smart, right? If you say, hey, write me an email, right? Design me an ad, right? It can probably do it. But garbage in, garbage out, right? If you don't have good sources of information for your LLM, you're gonna get pretty generic responses or stuff that looks like AI or whatever. So right now, what I'm working on at our company is I forget what you call it, usually like Notion and stuff. We're building essentially brains, right? And so each brain, so we'll have one that's a brain about our competitors, right? And the brain about our competitors has subscribed to the email newsletters of every single competitor, has RSS feeds from all of their sites, watches all of their social media pages, right? And it gathers information about competitors and it puts it all in a database. So whenever we have to write content that's us versus competitor X, right? We say, okay, look at the competitor brain and then look at the brain that has all the information about our product and write a post that has this, and this in it, right? Nice. So, you know, that's one brain. We have the brain about ourselves. We have the brain about our current marketing campaigns and messaging and how we speak about ourselves. We have a brain that's what content has worked for us in the past, what are the effective rates and what are things about them. So every time it generates content, it looks at that and it's like, okay, what things work and what things don't work. Oh, whenever I say it like this, the response rate of this piece of content is 10 times greater than if I didn't say it like that. Okay, well, we're gonna add some of that in there. So we've got all of these this is what's, in AI, this is what's known as RAG generation, so retrieval augmented. And the retrieval is you have outside sources of information that you're telling your LLM, don't just create content, pull stuff in from here to create content better, to be smarter about the answer that you're going to give me. When I'm working with small businesses, it's a lot of kind of what I said before. How do I get the junk off your plate you don't want to do, right? So there's a lot of, just minutia in owning a business, of following up with vendors, following up with leads, following up with your billing, all of these things where these are generally definable processes, as you were saying, that typically have an A, a B, a C, and a couple things in between. And most businesses, when they start, the business owner, right, you just started, you're a small business, guess what? It's you, the president, also taking out the trash, right? You're doing everything. And so the more that we can sort of take off your plate of like, okay, what's one of the most important things that most businesses have? Responding to a lead, right? A lead comes in and, let's say you're a plumber, a contractor, or whatever, right? If I'm calling plumbers and I call one and they don't pick up or they don't answer or I fill out their thing, that's it, I'm calling the next guy, right? And so we'll automate things like missed call text back. If they don't pick up the phone because they're under a sink somewhere and you call them, it'll text them and be like, hey, busy right now, thanks for calling. It'll start the conversation, right? Because now the conversation started, the ball's back in the customer's court. I also often will do things where we'll like, whenever you fill out a form on a website, you expect an automated response, right? You expect an email that says, thank you for contacting us, someone from our team will get back to you shortly. And you're like, that that's an automated response, right? Are you gonna respond? No, it's an automated response. Okay, here's the trick.
3 minutes.
You then wait 3 minutes, right? Why 3 minutes? Because a human could respond in 3 minutes. You don't do it an instant response because a human could not respond instantly. And you don't do it on the 5 minute mark because everyone does everything on the 5 minute mark, right? So 3 minutes, you instantly send that email. Someone's gonna respond to you, thank you, da-da-da-da-da, right? And then 3 minutes later, hey Joe, saw you reached out to us. Would love to talk. Here's a link to my calendar. Book a meeting. Let's sit down and chat, right? You write it like that because it feels like a person. Did I write it? AI did, right? The automation did it, but it's filled out the person's first name. It's written in a way that feels natural, right? You showed me an email that was definitely a pitch, someone trying to sell you something. And it was signed by the person, and it used the first name, but it read like a pitch, right? It read like, people say, like, what copywriter or marketing person or whatever wrote that, because you can tell, write automation in AI like you would actually speak, and you're gonna get a lot better response.
Okay. So I'm going to go with Linda. A lot of our, at least a lot of the AI folks that I've been talking to have been more focused on the small business. Hulup, interesting, is more focused on the enterprise. And what's your approach, and what are some of the challenges in trying to implement AI on the enterprise level?
Yeah, I think, some differentiation. Certainly when you're working at an enterprise level, you're gonna have a tremendous amount more governance, bureaucracy that you have to work through, committees that need to discuss and review, compliance, security. You're gonna have shared IT teams across the board. And all of them have a stake in the AI pie, if you will. The smaller businesses actually have the ability to move faster. They don't have all of the different tiers that they have to go through, but they can still quickly adopt a lot of the practices that are within an enterprise that will provide them a lot of value. I think regardless of small business or enterprise, the key is that learning and that reusability, and being able to leverage the capabilities of the AI tools that you're using to make all of your teams better, right? If you think that it's valuable to be able to process a particular form so that the work can be orchestrated, or maybe the first step in your automation is just logging in. If I can log in once, then everybody else that needs to log into that same system can use my same login component over and over again, and take advantage of that knowledge. And
my IT security guy's crying right now.
But that is, I think, really part of when we think about AI adoption and security, and particularly in banks and the governance layers. It starts to tie into what are some of the things that we can automate, should automate, and some of the things that we should not automate. Right? If it requires a high degree of compliance, if lives are on the line, a human needs to look at it. From a security perspective, what regulations do you have to adhere to, and how are you smart about that? How do you train your AI to know that we're going to take things so far? At Hulu, we like to say Hugo, who is our AI agent across the board, is humble, because we want Hugo to say, you know what, this is really not a job for me. This is a job for a human that can make that decision more effectively than we can, right? And so I think that's important to recognize within your enterprise. Where do you need that governance? How do you take those things and make them available? An enterprise may have an enterprise change management program or a whole division dedicated to driving change within that organization. A small business is going to have it from the top down and be able to disseminate those things through Slack or whatever they need to as quickly as possible. But the nice thing about a lot of these platforms is that reusability is there, and you can train it to be smart enough to know when it should do certain things and certainly when it should not.
Thank you. And Nicholas, you actually work both with for-profit and nonprofit. Have you? So, what are they similar, or is there like differences between working those organizations for AI automation projects?
Let me take. It depends, because I like them both for different reasons, right? Small businesses, once again, they're fun and all that other fun stuff, but nonprofits they tend to be a little poor. So most of their concern is kind of like around funding a lot of the time. So it's kind of like really figuring out and kind of like navigating that issue for them. And a lot of the folks that are within the nonprofit kind of like industry, they didn't start this thing because they have this amazing business acumen, right? A lot of the times, with nonprofits, their stuff is developed purely out of passion. So once again, and I hate to belabor the point, a lot of the times with like nonprofits, it's like, okay, well, let's just get your strategy right first. How do you explain who it is that you are? Let's get your messaging together. What are your projects? What are your funding mechanisms? Just kind of making sure that they have that kind of level of thinking. But when you really kind of like break it down, there's some nuanced differences, but there's a lot of kind of overlap, right? Those same things that I just said about nonprofits, about your messaging, your branding, your strategies and all that. That's the same thing that every business needs. Because let's make no mistake, a nonprofit is a business. It's just a business classification. There's 501c3s, 501c9s, 501c4s, and all these other kind of like differences in between. But as far as kind of the preference of which one to work with, I have fun with both. I have fun with both. The priority just kind of changes depending on the conversation and depending on where they are in their maturity as a company, right? Because a company that might be, 3 years in the books, 3 successful years in the books, because there's a difference. There's a difference between, having a 3-year company and then a 3-year successful company, right? So a 3-year successful company that has kind of like, it's a little more established compared to, the other one I may have mentioned. So I don't really have to worry about messaging and branding as much. Whereas some companies, like, I've had to kind of rework their messaging from the ground up. I'm talking, okay, let me give you a logo treatment. Let me make sure you have brand guidelines. Let me make sure you have all of these other kind of fun stuff. But, I think that once you mature in your company, that's when you start thinking about your marketing and all that other stuff a little more. I got to bug you about whatever tool you're using.
I asked exactly the nonprofit idea.
So one thing that we use, especially when we're kind of like helping them get their marketing and their messaging and all that other fun stuff together. And I wish they named this software as something a little bit different, because people kind of giggle every time I say it. It's called Foreplay AI. There it is. So
I don't get it.
But what it does, right, is it scrapes kind of like your competitors and figures out like, okay, what ads and what kind of like brand campaigns are they running? How successful are they? What's the visibility they're getting? And then you can feed that to maybe kind of like a Blaze AI or something like that. So it'll take the competitors, it'll reskin it with Blaze, and then just throw it on your socials for you. So I think another thing that folks need to kind of don't necessarily always think about, that your marketing isn't just it's not just the social media posts and all that other fun stuff, right? You know, there's the blogs that we get out there. There's also making sure that we have the correct meta descriptions in your websites and all these other things. Making sure that we're not focused on, and I think I talked about this last time too, Rich, making sure that we're not focused on just SEO, but we're actually looking to AEO and GEO as well. So you rank higher and show up in these
You should
actual
explain
searches.
what that is.
It helps you kind of like rank higher and show up more in kind of like the AI searches, because let's be real, we're ChatGPT and Claude, those things are replacing Google. You know, I might go to Google and ask for an answer, then it irritates me and I go straight to ChatGPT. You know, now we're skipping the middleman these days and we're using AIs for our search kind of like query things and all that. I went off on a tangent, but
So what does AEO and GEO mean?
so generative engine optimization, then I think it's agentic engine optimization. And what those things do, once again, it just helps you kind of like rank higher within AI. You know, I don't know, actually, that might be a good experiment. I haven't Googled any of kind of my companies per se to make sure, but I've done it with other folks and all that and helped them kind of like get their stuff together. But once again, you know, the messaging doesn't stop at socials. You know, the things that actually inform you showing up and ranking isn't just your social media. You know, it's one thing to throw up a website, right? But that's not enough. You know, that's not, anyone can throw up a website these days in seconds. You have to be intentional about the things that you're creating, right? But you have to know these considerations and come to things like, you know, what Rich is doing and also what that guy back there is doing. He's doing some great stuff with AI Collective. I'd say talk to him. Yeah. It's long and
So
short of it.
with Aaron, I'm going to change it a little bit here. So I'm going to point out that Aaron was actually won the Xavier Innovation Award in, was it 2024?
24, yeah.
And I think it's a fun project. Why don't
It
you
was a
talk
fun
about that project?
So, this was early LLM, and it was basically Zapier was holding. You guys know Zapier's process automation tool. So they were holding awards for you submit your project, and so one of them was AI innovation. And so I dressed up in a Santa suit and recorded a video for the project that we made. And the project was a AI generated letter to your child from Santa. And so what would happen was a parent would go online and they'd fill out a standard form. They would ask them just a bunch of different, what do they want for Christmas? What accomplishments have they had in school? Do they have a sibling? All of these little questions about the kid. And then it would generate a one-page letter from Santa to that child mentioning all of these things about them, like Santa knows who you are. And then to make it even better, we then sent that off to a company that has a tool that basically has a robotic arm that handwrites with a pen on paper. And so we had Christmas stationery, and it would handwrite every single letter to children, put it in an envelope, mail it to them on Christmas stationery. Yeah, so that was our 2024 AI project that won the Zapier Award.
I was going to see if you did it on like a typewriter or like a handwritten thing.
No, it's a company called Handywritten. A lot of real estate agents use it to like write your little handwritten letters, but we're like, no, if we can do that, why can't we write a full page from Tampa? So.
Nice.
So Linda, you know, Hulu, human in the loop. So I guess what are some activities that should obviously be automated versus what should never be automated, or at least have the human in the loop somewhere?
Yeah, I think if we look at processes that should be automated, certainly anything that's very repeatable, right? That has the decisions, you know, you're going to step in and you could do it 1,000 times a day, and you just really could have an automation do those things. Humans don't need to do that type of work. Like I mentioned earlier, when humans come in and they want to make a decision, it's going to be about something important. That's where when you look at your outcomes that you're looking to achieve, right? Maybe it's mitigating risk within your organization. You want to say, you know, I'm going to do 10,000 transactions a day, all below $100, and you know my risk is very low because I'm doing so many of those that I can process those through and you know have a robotic agent work on those types of things. But when I see something come through and it's above that $1 million threshold, I might want to get my eyes on that and make sure that that doesn't go out the door really quickly. So that's a good opportunity for a human to step in and have some oversight and some judgment that the AI is just not going to have. From an agentic perspective, being able to pull that knowledge in and, like I said, have some of the reasoning and the recommendations, right? There's no way, as much as some of us would love to look at all the news feeds and read the journal and look at the stock exchange and all the different options for grants that are available in the nonprofit industry, we're just not going to keep up on all of the different things that are available to us. But AI can come in and consume those things and take that information and say, you know what, this is the work that I've orchestrated. I know when I'm onboarding a new customer that I'm going to be able to make sure that their data is appropriately entered in this system and this system, and I'm going to get rid of those PDF forms because I'm going to have a quick form that somebody fills out on their tablet, and then it's going to disperse everything through all the different systems. But then the next time that I have an interface with that customer, it's going to be smart enough to know that maybe that customer might be at a higher risk to leave because my models have the reasoning and they're able to say they haven't spent any money out of their account over a period of time, right? So you can use agentic to really start to have it just enable your folks quickly to take mass amounts of information from different sources and make recommendations to maybe how they should handle a customer. Should they direct them along a different path? And then ultimately, what decision can you make? Should I reach out with that directly? Have a phone call with that particular customer because people can tell when things are AI.
But it's one of those things that, like as businesses, you always want it. Wouldn't it be great if before every phone call, I checked this, I checked this, and I got a report on this, and it's like, yeah, but who's got time for that?
Yeah, who has time for that, to look at all those
The AI has time for
sources?
that.
AI does. Agents are great at doing that and making those recommendations to expedite folks and to let you know, this call is great to take now. There's a lot of opportunity with that versus, I could call them back in 2 hours after I do the meetings, right? So you can start to triage a lot of your work and then just enable it across the board. And so we like to say there's a certain percentage of the time we still want humans in the loop doing all the really smart things that they do, say around 15% of the time for all those very repeatable tasks, processing large amounts of documents, following standard rules every single time that don't change or rarely change. Have 40% of your time with that, and then have the rest of your time guide your workforce into making some good decisions based on the business that's around them. Okay?
So, Nick, you're like the master of AI tools. Like, what tools would you? There's a lot of small business owners here. What are 5 tools that you recommend people research?
Blaze is one of my favorites because I hate social media. It does everything for you. So I would say Blaze. Lovable is actually one of my favorite freaking tools. You can make web apps and spit them out instantly. I use them a lot with kind of whether it's different clients or just kind of my own internal kind of applications as well. I really like Lovable. And then another one, it has AI within it. I would say Apollo because unfortunately I am in sales. So what it helps with is kind of lead generation, finding those folks, automating messaging, communication, phone calls, emails, whatever. So I think that I would say those are kind of my top 3. Those are the ones that I use the most. But I would say that they're almost, not zone specific, but depending on kind of what part of your business, what part of the business my team is working on, it's going to depend on what tool they use, right? So each one of my team members, they have expertise in certain tools. I'm not trying to learn all of these things. I might touch and play with a lot of them. But as far as kind of Blaze, my marketing guy handles that. Apollo, my sales guy, he handles that. As far as the overall kind of like organization and all that other kind of fun stuff, I live within that first automation that I kind of like explained earlier, because my job is really just kind of directing. It's kind of, okay, go here, go here, go here, go here, go here. But in order to tell people to go here, go here, go here, go here, I have to actually have some lived experience of what it is that they're doing when they're doing this thing, right? It helps as a founder because, unfortunately, like you're saying, when you start, you're a little bit of everything. So you're the janitor, you're the marketer, you're the operations, you're the sales, you're the program developer, you're the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So as a founder, in building these things out, you learn how to do everybody's job a little bit, enough to be dangerous, so to speak. So you would definitely want to kind of like know those tools that keep your team efficient and just make sure that they have the right stuff so they can do their job.
Can I throw one tool in? It's sort of AI adjacent, but it's Fathom. So Fathom is a AI note taker, which you've probably seen lots of different versions on lots of different Zoom meetings or whatever. But having a good AI note taker is so important because you're doing so much every day, and it's so easy to forget things, to miss things. I will not have a meeting online that doesn't have my AI note taker going, because as soon as that meeting is over, I will drop that into Claude and be like, give me all the action items. If we were discussing a project, build the project plan for me. It's also, as we're, I talked about building brains before. One of the things that we build is a customer objections brain. So in those calls, when customers bring up an objection or something that, I don't know, this, and this, we capture all of that through the AI note taker, extract it out, and then build something that's able to then understand and respond to that better, so that your next call ends up better than your last call. So yeah, I won't do a meeting without an AI note taker in place.
You got to check out Lindy, because Lindy, I hate to keep harping on Lindy, but Lindy will listen to all your calls, your phone calls, your et cetera, and then after said phone call, it'll text you a recap of what just happened and what you just talked about. Not only that, but if you have kind of like a Monday or some other kind of like project management board, it'll automatically throw those tasks on there. But you have to make sure that you're thorough in your communications, right? If you want it done by a specific date, like it can't really, you have to say those things, right? Like, okay, I want this thing done, but it can't really populate the date and the to-do time for it to be done if you don't say it in the conversation. It might be able to infer from some context that you have, but you definitely want to make sure that your communication is on point with those things. But yes, a note taker, I don't go into meetings without it. And then there's the hardware versions of that too. I forget the name of it, but if anybody knows it, feel free.
It's just like a pin, and they just have a pin in their pocket, and it's recording what they're saying.
Well, there's one that goes on the back of the phone.
Yeah.
Claw. You know?
Claw.
Plot. Yeah, there you go.
Plot.
I knew this guy would know. But yeah, because it's interesting, right? Like, I love that AI is starting to kind of like infiltrate the hardware space. I think that's going to be one of the next frontiers, right? Because software is easy. Hardware is very difficult because there's different manufacturing processes that kind of like go into these things, just a whole lot of just different considerations. Then you have to consider the whole user experience, how we interact with this tool. There's just so many considerations, but I'm really excited for that field.
So Aaron, you're like a big Zapier guru. Are there any other tools that you would, since now you work for BlackRock,
Yeah.
that you also use in addition to Zapier?
So Pipedream is kind of a Zapier on steroids. You tend to have to be a little bit more comfortable with code, but Claude's comfortable with code, so I typically have Claude write the code pieces on. And then a lot of my small business stuff, I've actually been trying to move away from Zapier a bit, just simply because of cost. So Zapier's a great tool, right? It's a wonderful tool. I've been using it for years, but 4 cents a task, and those add up very quickly, especially if you have high repetition functions. One of the things about using a Claude or a ChatGPT is a lot of these, all Zapier is a fancy user interface on top of webhooks and API calls, right? It's made it so you can drag and drop and plug and play, right? But oftentimes those tools can just be directly connected together without that, right? And so if you can get Claude to write a little free Google Apps script, that translates data A into data B, right? Then you've got that same thing that Zapier was doing for you, but you've got it for free. Typically, I also do a lot of like CRM work, so a lot of CRMs have workflow builders inside of them. And so, as much as possible, I'm utilizing those to be like, okay, well, it comes with a piece of software that you're already using, so why don't we get as much use out of that as possible, because you're already paying for it. So really, like, I'm tool agnostic, but I definitely have tools that I focus on, and a lot of times in working with small businesses, it's always going to be, hey, you're using these 10 tools, can we consolidate that down to these 3 tools? Because guess what, each of those 10 tools is costing you X per month, right? Where if you consolidate it down to these 3 tools, which are only costing you, you've saved 50%, 60%. So, it's really just about what you're trying to do. I set up CRMs for companies, and I have one that I use, pretty exclusively. And it's kind of like WordPress, right? It's like there's the baseline software, and then we build stuff on top of it that is custom to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think cost management, just to add on to that, is really important as you start to look at all of these AI tools. I mean, you can build them so quickly. They're readily available. Everything is AI powered. If you look at the different software, one of the things within Loop as we're orchestrating work, we have what's called a transparency sandbox. And so we're able to actually come in and regularly look at the different models that are being selected to perform a particular type of job. If we look at the frontier models that are available out there, and this month it might be Gemini is really great at content processing. Next month it's going to be OpenAI, right? And we're able to say, okay, well now Claude came out with, Opus 8, and so we want to try that. So on a model by model basis, and then they've got token wars as you go through effectively. You're like, okay, this month this model costs this, and if I'm processing at that, but do I get as good of answers, or does it cost me less if I use this model, but I don't have to ask it 20 times? So is it cheaper? And then it's like, I have this like AI.
But different models are good for different things. Like,
right?
I'll use Claude at work all day.
Yeah.
I will never have it create images for me. I'll just jump over to ChatGPT, have it create an image, I use Claude for work stuff. I use ChatGPT for personal stuff. So it really just, different ones have different strengths.
They do have different strengths, and so it's really important just as you're looking at how to use each of those to just stay on top of, is it expensive? Does it allow me to do the things that I need to do? How can I consolidate so I don't have 50 different tools that are longer term not saving me anything?
Well, AI has made it so easy for the average person to sort of write software that every time we're evaluating a new tool that has some sort of an AI, this or that in it, because everything does now, like you're saying, right? The first question we ask is, can we build the part of this that we need ourselves, right? And half the time the answer is yeah. It's like, oh, well, it's great that this tool has an expertise and it does this one thing really well, but of this thing, and you have to pay the minimum price and you get everything, all these features. But I really only needed this one feature of that tool. Can I create that one feature with AI? Yeah, a lot of times you can. So just in terms of trying to figure out what tools you're using, and again, when I talked about Claude versus ChatGPT, the reason that I use Claude for work stuff, the one place where it really excels is it connects to a bunch of other tools really easily, right? And the power of using an AI in a business is not just for the AI itself, but it's for its ability to orchestrate between all of these other systems that you're using and bring that data in and make decisions with lots of different things that would take a person only to do.
All right, so last question before I open up to the audience. So we have a lot of small business owners here. What advice would you give them if they wanted to implement AI automation?
Call them.
I like the pitch.
I would say figure out your business first. Figure out your business. Figure out kind of like what are your key functions, what's your objective, what are you actually trying to do, and then we can start talking about automations. Not a second before, because as Aaron was saying, it's very easy for folks to create software and tools these days, and then people confuse that with having a business. It's not the same thing.
Map.
Make the business first, map it, and then automate it.
Map, it's a big one. Get a flowchart program or a whiteboard or something.
Oh, I love a
And just be
whiteboard
like,
session.
what do I do every day? Well, when this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Oh, at this point, I have to make a decision. Do I do this? Do I do this?
Yep.
Draw all that on paper. Miro is a great online program that does flowcharts that I love. But get that figured out, because by doing it, let's say you do come to someone like me for help setting something like this up, what am I going to do? I'm going to charge you to map it for you, because I need to know that in order to build the system.
Outcomes, I think, right? Make sure that you really understand what are the outcomes that you want to drive for your business, and then, take that and flow it into the process. Clearly articulate how you're going to govern it, who's going to use it, how can it get the most value. And if you start from the outcome, then the AI is there to help you drive it.
Okay, so I'm going to open up questions to the audience. Anybody have questions?
I really like how you mentioned final question, like that the pod goes really just automate everything. I think that's like the biggest thing. Like this was right code, like automate everything. So I really enjoy that part. And so I got one question, which is for enterprise systems, when you're like doing content stuff, what are the things that you've noticed that they can't really do, or that they want to delegate? Why, or just kind of general information around there?
Enterprise question, you want to take it?
Sort of content.
And you might have to repeat the question too, because
Yeah, it was a little bit quiet, but I think you said for enterprises, what should they not be using AI for?
Oh, no, like what, I heard somewhere in the beginning where it's like, they're talking about working with content for enterprise workflows, like content as in videos, what they need, like blogs, and stuff like that. What are the things that they want to delegate that they might not have so much expertise in? Because like they have like years, so like what are they not building that people are offering, if that makes sense? That's the question.
I think I understand the question right. Like, so the first thing I have on my website is like, can it be automated for a company? And the answer is yes, right? Pretty much everything can be automated in some way, shape, or form. The question becomes, can it be done well? Can the content be good, right? And so that's where you have, that's where the sort of AI experts and learning about, like, AI is a very simple tool that everyone can use, but there are various levels of how you're using it, right? And so, at the enterprise level, we're adding way more checks, way more brains, way more humans in the loop, just to be sure, because oftentimes these are much more sensitive things that you're working with. So it really becomes, as you were saying, like, you map it out, figure out the governance, figure out, not can it be done, but should it be done, right? Because yes, I can create a blog post by going to Claude and saying, hey, you know a little bit about my company, write me a blog post on this. Or I can be very specific and say, using this source, and this source with an audience of this and a goal of this, and here's an example, and bringing all of these things in, you're actually going to get much better output. So yeah, it's not necessarily can it, it's really how do we do it right and how do we get it better.
I think too, starting out with things that garbage in, garbage out. If you have bad data, if the system, if you have a CRM platform and you're struggling to get your sales folks to enter the information into it, the AI is going to learn from half of the information that's still in people's heads, right? So you have to be very careful about, diligence and adoption of the different tools. Things that are really exception heavy are certainly more challenging to automate, where you can't clearly define the process, or there's literally 1,000 different exceptions that could happen over the course of it. Those things are going to be a significant investment. It may not be the best use of your time until you really start to figure out some better ways to work with that information at an enterprise level.
I have a really great example that I've been working on this week, which is like, so as we talk about the brains and having, something that we can retrieve content from. Most companies have some sort of cloud folder system, Google Drive, SharePoint, Dropbox, whatever. And a lot of companies will be like, oh yeah, I got all this information up here. This will make my AI smart, right? And so our marketing team came back to us the other day and they're like, we're getting some weird stuff coming out of the AI. Like, why? And so we started looking at it. We're like, well, you told the AI, go to our SharePoint, which is huge, grab information and write content. Well, guess what's in that SharePoint? Drafts, stuff that's very, very old, stuff that's not been approved, right? It doesn't know that. It just says, you told me to go look at this content. I'm going to go look at this content. And so it's creating stuff that is garbage out because it doesn't have the right set of rules. So we ended up creating a system where it's like, okay, every subfolder in our SharePoint has an AI OK folder in it. And whenever you're like, this file is good, make a copy and send it into there, right? And then the AI knows, only look at the AI OK folders when you're trying to answer a question, because everything else is junk, right? Everything else is old, or it's something that we're currently working on that's not ready. It's a future campaign that we don't want to get out there. So yeah, having good governance and good rules and good planning before you just kind of jump into it's really important.
Yep. Any other questions? Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, I think this might be for Nick and Aaron, I think, and that is, practically speaking, how do you target the companies that you're reaching out to? Are you cold calling? I'm sure you're not just posting a website and waiting for people to drop in. So how do you filter and target your audience, and then how do you go and get that audience?
It's interesting because there's a million and one different strategies, right? I guess I'm speaking from a place of privilege here with, I just kind of like leverage my network, the folks that I already know, and then just kind of like do referrals from there. Also, something else that I find that helps, there's no substitute for this. There's no substitute for kind of like real life conversations, real life interactions, you know, an opportunity for people to really kind of like experience you and your knowledge, right? So whether that's a workshop, a panel, a speaking engagement, or just being out and about in the community in real life, that tends to help, yeah.
I don't really have a better answer. Kennedy Automated is sort of my side hustle. So I have my day job, and most of my automation and AI work outside of my day job comes from referrals. So my current customers tell their friends, and I try to do partner deals where it's like I'll find someone who is an expert in a certain industry, and I'll be like, we're going to create a series of automations really good for your industry, and then they're going to go out and tell all their friends who are also in the industry and resell that one thing over and over. And so it's like that one customer that I spent a lot of time building the base thing becomes my source for 10 more clients who all use a version of that. But yeah, I don't do marketing, to be perfectly honest. Like, I don't run ads. I'll occasionally do one of these. Yeah. So
do good work and be visible.
yeah.
Do good work and be visible.
Go ahead.
Hi, probably never introduced myself. Workflow orchestration was there for a long time before AI. I worked in 40 right? My question is, how much of the actual workflow nowadays, right? So you're working on so how much of them are actually AI, or is non-AI tasks?
Yeah, so that's part of what I was kind of mentioning earlier, because what we do still has that very much the human touch. We've got, I would say, about 15% of what we do is that human in the loop. Like, I want to be able to call somebody and talk to a real person, right? There's things that have rules that aren't going to change, and so you've got 25% of that is just consistent and you can count on it, and you probably don't want to pay token costs just to follow the same rules 100 times over and over again, right? And then the remainder of it, where there is some of that decisioning, the reasoning, being able to pull in and learn and look at those different sources, is going to use AI, whether it's generative because it can take this SOP that you worked, like we take SOPs and pull them into our platform, leveraging AI, and then build the entire work orchestration for you based on the SOP that you've taken the time to write and define. And then you've got all of your reasoning that happens, your agentic operations, your sub-agents that run. So if you take all of those tiers, you're gonna spend the bulk majority of your time using AI in one of its many capacities, while the rest of it, either a human's gonna do or it's gonna be highly repetitive automation process.
So it's more helpful in defining the orchestration, or is it helpful on an operation based AI? So
Really, I would say both, right? You want to make sure that you're using it operationally to be an expediter for what you're doing, but also to help orchestrate and optimize your orchestration of the work too, right? Look for those different patterns, make suggestions, identify risk, call out IRS rules that have changed, like what type of governance do I have? Is there some opportunities? Do I need to update rates as part of my flow that maybe doesn't regularly get checked on by somebody? AI can do really well with all of those things.
Yeah, as you're looking at a process, there are certain things that we couldn't do before AI, right? Write this email based on all of these things. Couldn't do it. There are other things where things that we were able to do before, we can now do with AI much faster. So, very simple example, using Zapier. A lot of times, different tools a company would be using wouldn't have a Zapier connection. And so we'd see a lot of like, oh, I get a lead from my website and it sends me an email every time and all the information is in the email and it looks the same every time. I can write 40 Zapier steps to say, cut the text here, grab this piece, that's the first name. Cut the text here, grab this piece, that's the last name. Each of those is a step, right? 40 steps later, I've extracted all of the information from the email, and I have it, and I can put it in my CRM, I can do whatever I want with it. Now, I have one AI step that says, I need first name, last name, email, phone number, address, what they want, and in that one step, it gives me the answer, and it's accurate. So, some of these things are just like, yes, do I pay a few tokens for that? Yeah, but I didn't spend 10 hours writing a process that, that potentially ate up a bunch of Zapier tasks. So.
Yeah. Again, looking at the outcome, right? Are you
Yeah.
really going to be able to maximize your effort from doing that particular
What's your favorite automation that you've built for yourself that has had sort of long-lasting usefulness?
Wendy. It's not just the automation of kind of like the note taker kind of thing. Lindy always comes into the calls and then it automates and then it sends the messages and the communications to my phone, but it also sends those communications to my team via WhatsApp. Because my team isn't just in America. I have team members in Indonesia, I have team members in the Philippines, so I can't exactly send an SMS to them all the time, So having that kind of like automation within Lindy, have a conversation, task get created, task gets delegated to the appropriate person. That's one thing, especially when you're kind of like leading an organization, you lose so much time by repeating the same thing over and over again. Or kind of like reinventing the wheel and all. Yeah, you built it. So, you lose so much time in that. So to have something to where that's just automated and it just flows, a lot of times folks suffer from decision-making fatigue. Having this AI tool in place and this automation alleviates that to where you can put that brain capacity and power to something much more important. So I would say that's kind of like my favorite automation that I use within my teams.
I'd say I built a personal task manager. So I have 2 businesses, 2 kids, 3 dogs, a wife, 3 hobbies. And so every morning I have a process that runs that it looks at my CRM, it looks at my to-do app, it looks at my emails from both of my jobs, it looks at the Notes app on my phone that my wife updates with things I have to do. And it then gives me this is what you need to be focusing on today. This is what's aging. You've been up here for a while. This email sounds really urgent. Maybe you should take a look at it. And so it just sort of helps me every day. Be like, when I sit down in the morning, what am I doing today? Oh, it's giving me sort of a general outline.
Do you use Zapier to get it to access your notes?
No, that's the hard one. So that one actually, you have to use the little automation app built into the iPhone. And so that one of the steps is a webhook step, and so you have to like talk to the webhook step to get it to actually run the daily sync. Yeah. So there's a little automations app on iPhones that you can create little mini processes that can talk to.
Productize that.
Huh?
You should productize that. You start
It's so custom for every. I thought about it, but it's so different for every person because every person has just so many different tools that they use or ways that they do it. And yeah, so it's more of like a how do you work? I have a client who has a thing where he really loves using his voice recorder, and so we have something that ties to his voice recorder app, and then like every time he's like, oh, idea, da, 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 da. It records it, processes it, sends it into his CRM, and it's like, kind of database of things that he wants to work on later. Yeah.
Whisper?
Huh?
Using Whisper for that?
No, it's just the voice recorder app on the phone and iPhone automation.
Nice.
I would say for me, and not only for me, but also a lot of our customers, is just new employee onboarding.
Yes.
So whenever we have to bring somebody on to help us out, and there's so many different places we have to get them going, on our payroll system, our HR system, we have to get them benefits, we have to provision a computer, we have to just do all of these things so that they can be ready to go on their first day. And I did not want to run through that list of stuff that I had to do anymore. So I just automated it, and I click a button and then it does like all the things. And I can have my team then not focus on going through the minutia of the paperwork and all the other stuff. That just gets somebody going so they can hit the ground running with all the services they need on day one.
It's not really AI. Do you ever use Scribe?
So I use Scribe, and so interestingly from a business perspective, one of the things, and this is always the governance challenges that you have, so it's a great tool if you're running it on your computer. One of the use cases that we looked at using it from a small business perspective was being able to, within a customer's environment, be able to capture certain things, but then if they provision a computer for you and then you install it, and then you log in with your account, then unfortunately they would have access to any other Scribe you've done for any other customer that you've done, right, which is a security risk. So all those tools, there's nuance associated with them, so you just have to be careful.
Scribe
with
is
the
a tool that,
governance.
like, let's say you have so for me, I often have to tell a client, okay, you have to log into Zapier, you have to share this thing with me so that I can build this thing for you, right? I have to, like 3 times a week, I have to tell someone how to do this. So Scribe is a tool where you sit down at your computer and you do it once, and it screenshots every action that you take, and then it writes a process out, and you just send that to them and be like, do this.
Nice.
And it does that very
Yeah.
well.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead. Jesse.
Hey everyone, my name is Jesse Delgado. I'm actually the founder of AI Collective Sacramento. And just shout out on August 13th, we're doing an event teaching you how to do design so you can not do AI slop. So we'd love to have you out there. But my question for you guys is, how are you guys thinking about AI policy as it relates to the general public, specifically as maybe as a small business? Because there's a lot of tension obviously right now in the marketplace. And it's one of those, governance and things like that keep on coming up. And so I'm just curious from even on the enterprise side too, is, how are you guys thinking through the governance side of things, the AI policy side of things, and maybe even just how frontward facing you guys are with the AI usage in your industries?
It's very nerve-wracking. It's very nerve-wracking because I think that that's kind of something that government hasn't quite, government and the folks that make these regulations haven't quite kept up with the technological advancements that we're having right now. So you have people trying to police technologies that they really don't know anything about. So we're going to go through this little period of kind of like a wild, wild west, so to speak, where we're kind of just figuring out, winging it. A lot of things are going to break. But if you take a look at kind of like the AI policy and development over there in Europe, they're actually a lot further ahead than we are over here in the States. As far as putting those regulations, having those kinds of conversations, and really kind of like putting those protections in place for the users, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm worried about it. I'm worried about it. I think we're very behind, and I don't know what the solution is.
Any advice to specifically, because obviously as having virtual teams and things like that, any advice to small businesses maybe on what options they need to weigh with it? Like, I'll give you for example, I don't even know if it does any good, but I just put an AI policy, you know how we have all these other policies on our website. I just put one there just in case anybody wants to know how I use it.
Yeah.
It's there, but I'm curious if, you know, any advice to other small businesses that may encounter scrutiny or anything like that for using some of these tools.
Yeah, and I guess I have a one question to add on, like, are you guys doing even internally documenting how you will and won't use so your teams know when asked if it's not on the site? So that's the tagline, that was a great question.
Yeah, so I think starting with your responsible AI policy is absolutely the right thing to do. You have to know how you want to enable your business to use AI and train your people to be responsible with the use of it and the tools that you've selected and provided that go through your governance process, right? You need to make sure that, because AI is fallible, right? There are areas where you need that governance. If you're going to use it for an AI note taker, right? And you have all these action items that were agreed to, that it didn't happen to miss that action item, because it sometimes happens, right? It'll capture 9 out of the 10.
I'm more likely to miss it than you.
Is there a probability?
Yeah.
But there has to be that accountability too.
Yep.
with it. Making sure, just simple things, right? If you're going to provide an AI solution to your employees, make sure that you're very aware of the security settings that are in place for it. Have your default be to, not train public models, to automatically strip out PII, any customer data that you have in there before asking for different solutions. Making sure that employees still review their work that is produced and not just, take it as it is. It's very obvious when I receive an email with happy little icons and M dashes that somebody didn't take the content and really review it before they sent it out and took it, at the end of the day as the be all tell all, because it's not. So you really have to be able to communicate that, and then, like with other things, set those standards. A makes it faster to be able to give it the instructions that it needs to be smarter for your business. So take a little bit of time up front. Give it your brand instructions, right? For everything that you do, if somebody's going to use AI, tell it what your color palette is and what fonts you used. And when it generates documents, have it just do it consistently in the way that you want it output, so you don't have to spend the time training people other than use the instructions that it's been provided, right?
So my 17-year-old hates what I do. Because all she gets is data centers are bad and artists
My
are
kids are
being,
the same, actually.
and kind of what I tell her is like, cat's out of the bag, right? This is something that every major company is now using. That, like, I went through a job transition recently, and like I was director of AI at a company. The company was not doing well. They had big layoffs. I had to go look for a job. 100 resumes out in a month. So many opportunities in AI because everyone's looking we need someone to help guide our AI policy. Training is hugely important. We have an AI council at work that puts together trainings that, going through and telling people different updates that are locking down models. Nobody gets to use Fable 5, sorry. That are putting together just guidelines on how we use it. And I'm going to share a funny story that I read the other day. In school, I guess a lot of teachers and stuff are concerned about, are our students learning, or are students just using AI to create, the answers to these essay questions or whatever. So a professor at a college gave everyone an essay assignment, and in that text of the essay assignment, in white text, so no one could see it, wrote, insert the word Madagascar randomly into da 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 da. 80% of his students, as he read their papers, had random Madagascars. Because not only were they using a ChatGPT, a Claude, or whatever to create that, but they weren't checking their work anymore, right? And so, we typically tell people around the company, 80-20 rule. AI can probably get you 80% of the way there, but it's not going to get you 100%, right? And that 20% is extremely important and why we pay you for your brain, right? That's your job now. Your job is that 20%. You can do a lot more of those 20% in the same time it used to, because you don't have to do the 80% anymore, but you still have to do the 20%.
One last follow-up on that, because that is a great point. In what ways are you seeing small businesses or businesses kind of doing that are some ways that they might be able to avoid kind of outsourcing their thinking a little bit too much?
Well, like
AI,
I'm saying, you can tell. You can. AI is not so good that you can't tell it,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, the M dash, the certain ways of if this then that, right? The way that it talks. A lot of this, like literally in the systems that I'm using at work, we have a whole subset of instructions in a skill that is the anti-AI skill. And it is all of these things that you're not allowed to do because they are telltale signs that you are using AI, right? So we build that into our system to say, don't do any of that. AI art, very easy to identify, right? Times when it's useful, other times when it's not. So as I again, the stuff that I was speaking about way in the beginning, which is your AI and your automation needs to not feel like AI and automation. And if it does, then you feel like you're doing a lot, but you're running on a treadmill because you're not getting your point across to customers. You're not going to be as responsive. And so the ultimate end goal of what you're trying to do, which is probably some sort of conversion, might be going down because of the way that you're doing it. Now, if it's something like, hey, I need to make sure that this bill always gets into QuickBooks every time it comes in, yeah, fine. QuickBooks doesn't care, right? But when you're talking to real people and real humans, you want to make sure that you don't lose that actual connection.
And there's a lot of scams too, just with AI. So making sure that if you're allowing people to use AI to call public models to do their work, there are people out there that, because it takes a whole 2 minutes to spin up a website, do nothing but, from a hacker perspective, spin up literally thousands of websites with bad information and bad phone numbers that look very much like qualified sources, right? So a hacker could spin up 1,000 websites, and they're gonna all be to company.com and call 1-800, give me your credit card. And so, absolutely, who hasn't? And so, if people are using those models and you haven't done some of that training for both your team and against those models to say, only train against qualified sources and those types of things, right? Then you could open yourself up to pulling in information or having a phone number that somebody might call and they think that it's you. It sounds like a real business, but it's actually somebody that's fishing for information and it's going to steal company data, credit cards, ask for gift cards as a representative of your organization. I mean, all of the same kind of attack vectors that have been out there from a technology world. AI is not immune to that, so.
Okay, so the fact that my panelists are starting to fall off in mile rates. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. So there's a couple of it. So Jesse, I like the self-promotion. So that was the 13th.
The 13th, yep. It starts at 5:30, goes to 9. It's a live build session. Going to help you build out your design system right on the fly. Bring your laptop. We're going to walk through all the UI UX design principles with a certified AI design expert, and we're going to go really, really deep. So August 13th, it's a 3.5-hour event, so it'll be pretty long. Food will be provided, and bring your laptop.
And let's see, so the day before that, we're starting to do workshops in Rancho Cordova. And it's this one's going to be very rudimentary it's supposed to be for non-technical business owners on how to use AI. So that'll be in Rancho Cordova. And then for more techie, it's the third Tuesday of the month, whatever that is. It's at in Folsom. We're going to have a panel discussion on vibe coding. So we'll have an experienced coder, a non-coder, and a gentleman that actually has a whole startup that he developed using vibe coding. So we'll have a panel discussion on that. And with that, thank you for all attending. And again, let's give you guys a good hand. Oh, wait.
Is this the time for announcements?
Sure.
Cool. All right, so we also have a program that's coming out in partnership with AWS and NorCal SBDC. It's AI for blue collar folks and all that, just to kind of get them caught up and modernized and all that other fun stuff. That's going to be happening in September. It also has a culminating pitch that's going to happen during SAC Tech Week, and the prize is about $40,000 in AWS credits and all that fun stuff. And SAC Tech Week, for those that do not know, that's going to be October 19th through the 24th. We'd love to have you all there. And we're still accepting applications for partners that actually want to host events as well. So let's talk.
All right, so thanks everybody for coming.
Startup Folsom.